कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूर्मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि.
In this video, we will be talking about the most popular shloka from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, and in some ways the shloka that carries the soul, the essence of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Thou hast a right to action, but never to the fruits of thy action. Thou hast a right to action, but never to the fruits of your action. Let not your motive be the fruits of thy action, and yet never be attached to inactivity. Now let us first understand what is action. The majority of the time when we talk of action, we understand it to be career. We understand it to be livelihood. But actually, action is happening at all points in time. Action is happening inwardly in the form of one's thoughts and feelings. Action is happening outwardly in the form of one's speech, activity, work, relationship, any engagement with the outer physical, material, social world. So action is happening 24/7, inwardly as well as outwardly. And one has a right to action. What does it mean to have a right to action? One has the power and the possibility to give one's 100% effort in everything one does and engages in. One has a right to action. And yet, one does not have a right over the fruits of one's action. Now, this is critical because what it is saying is to not have a right over the fruits of one's action gives one an immensity of inner freedom. One does not have a right to the fruits of one's action. And when one does not have a right to the fruit of one's action, one is free, free of ownership, free of credit, free of the taint of action, free of wanting to do things out of an impure motive, that if I do this, I will get so and so. It is not by the passivity of action that one progresses. It is by the purity of one's action that one progresses. And that is why the Bhagavad Gita talks about selfless action, a selfless service to the divine. Because when one doesn't have a right to the fruits of one's actions, one is not doing work for the sake of those fruits. One is also not considering oneself as the cause of those fruits, as the doer that has effectuated the fruits of one's action. That shields us from getting to be too high in success and too dejected and despondent in failure. Because even the assessment of success and failure is a mental one. Our human mind is incapable of really truly knowing what is the divine will and what is a true success and what is a true failure. Often our judgment about failure and success are coming more from the society than from the divinity. And what a great inner freedom to have the joy of no possession, to have the joy of service without getting attached to the fruits of one's activity. It does not mean that one does not plan, that one does not have a sense of planning or structure in life, that one is not able to foresee, or that when one does an action, one is not able to work towards the outcome of that action. That would be a misunderstanding of this shloka. And several people indeed have misunderstood this shloka to mean that whenever we engage in work, we do not plan, keeping in our minds the larger picture, the outcome for which the work is being done. For instance, if I were to take an arrow and aim, I will be keeping the aim in mind. But that is different than becoming attached to the arrow in my hand, hitting the very bull's eye. And that is where I have to be detached, that it's okay. It may hit the bullseye, it may not hit the bullseye. I do my work as a joyful progress and service to the divine. And it is in that attitude that I progress. And in many ways, I progress so much more when I do work selflessly, desirelessly, than what I do in meditation. Because meditation is purely inward facing. But when I engage in work with purity, then it is a bridge between the inner life and the outer life. And the progress that can cause is immense. So not to get too overly attached with the outcome of one's action. That gives one's immensity of inner freedom to slowly begin to align with the divine will. Because oftentimes the limitations of our mind is not able to figure out or fathom what is it that the divine will that is trying to do. When one is successful, to also understand that all the success that is coming, it is coming for the divine and the divine's sake, and it is not mine. And similarly, when one puts in one's 100% of effort and one fails, to not take that failure personally, because maybe that failure was just the right thing that was required for a larger, deeper, higher progress. A progress that perhaps that the mind cannot yet fathom or understand or grasp. And thus one takes the success and puts it at the feet of the divine, and failure and puts it at the feet of the divine. One constantly and always just aims at evolution and progress towards the realization of divinity in life. And at the same time, the beauty of this shloka is how on one hand, it talks about karma yoga action as the means of liberation and inner liberation, and an action in the world that is intense and at the same time detached and uninvolved. So it talks about, on one hand, the importance of action and how to pursue action as yoga. And at the same time, it cautions against attachment to inactivity. That yes, the stability of the spirit is of paramount importance. But at the same time, to just dwell on the spirit and not engage in action is also a mistake. As a spiritual seeker, that often tends to be the tendency towards inactivity, the tendency towards the peace of the immobile spirit, and to just be a part of that. One more thing that I want to caution you about, that to be non-attached to the fruits of one's action is not just applicable when one is doing a work for oneself. It is also applicable when one is doing a work for a higher cause, a higher purpose for the divine. Even there, to not be attached to the fruits of one's action, to not think that you are the cause of the action or you have a right to the fruits of the action. Only then it becomes a selfless service. Otherwise, even if you've chosen philanthropy, volunteering, giving yourself for the sake of a higher purpose and cause for a divine work, but if inside of yourself, if inside of your action, there is hidden within it a certain need, a certain desire for acknowledgement, for appreciation, that action loses all its value from the perspective of the divine. And at the same time, no matter in which context you are in, when you choose to do a work as an offering at the service of the divine, by bringing utmost perfection into the work that you're doing, utmost creativity in the work that you're doing, and trying your best that it serves the highest possible aim, then that action is a very sacred action. It's a yogic action because it helps you evolve in consciousness. It helps you grow closer to the eternal spirit on the inside. From the perspective of yoga, It is not the scale of work that matters. All you could be doing is brooming a room. But if you're doing it for the divine, and if you're doing it in the right spirit, that matters so much more than a massive, impactful scale done for self-profit. The purity of one's action, the purity of one's action is what is at the core of Karma Yoga. Why am I doing? What am I doing? For whom am I doing? From which inner space am I doing? Am I able to be intensely engaged at work, bringing perfection in the work that I do? Just like Arjuna is a perfect warrior? And at the same time, am I able to remain detached and uninvolved and one with the spirit that is untouched by the highs and lows, ups and downs of life? Can I give this work 100%? Something which is not done for my selfish sake, for the sake of a higher purpose, for the sake of the divine. Can I do it with all my intensity and yet not have a claim of ownership on it? That's the most difficult thing. Because oftentimes people who are passionate, they get involved. When they get involved, they want control over what they create. They want that sense of ownership and possession. And on the other hand, the people who like to meditate and be and feel inwardly a sense of purity, but they get attached to inactivity and they don't get into action. When I say they don't get into action, I mean they don't get into an action that is an inspired action that wants to contribute to something higher and larger. They may be doing action for the sake of livelihood, for the sake of being alive, for the sake of survival, for the sake of family. But they don't allow the stillness and the silence and the purity that they feel in their meditation to flow through them as a creative, dynamic action at the service of something higher. And the crux of this shloka is to begin to marry the two. On one hand is the quietude, the untouched spirit. On the other hand is a dynamic action. And the two marry with each other. When action is not happening out of practicalities and a restless mind. And quietude is not taking one away from the world of action, which is full of imperfections. And as the two come together, they come together when one is able to act, one is able to claim one's right to action without feeling like I am the cause of this action or getting attached to the fruits of the action. So with that as the key to action, share with us in the comments below what did you learn through this video, because it is really through the process of reflection and assimilation that you really progress. It's not through passive listening that you progress. You progress when you assimilate. So I look forward to hearing your learnings in the comments below, and I shall see you in the next video. Hope you found the video to be useful. If you would like to continue your journey with us, if you would like to help us support you in your journey, click on the link below and join us for a 2.5-hour signature masterclass called the Awakening Karma Yogi Workshop, where we run you through the fundamental stages of awakening to become a Karma Yogi, to be peaceful inside and successful outside. We talk about Swabhava, our true nature, and Swadharma, our soul's purpose, which are the building blocks of a life affirming, not a life negating spirituality. So if you found this video to be useful, click on the link below and I shall see you at the workshop.